Hello, everyone. My name is Cassia Vinci, and I'm with the Program on the Environment at the University of Washington, Seattle. Today, I'll be presenting my research titled Atoms and Inequities, Exploring the Demographic Divide in Nuclear Understanding. This work is based on my internship with the Central Plateau Cleanup Company, CPCCO, which is a Department of Energy contractor at the Hanford nuclear site, along with a statewide public perception survey and an academic literature review. First of all, I wanted to begin by grounding us in the context of the Hanford site and why this research matters. The Hanford site was established during World War II as a part of the Manhattan Project, where the US produced plutonium for nuclear weapons for more than 4 decades. This left a legacy of contamination that remains today, which consists of 56 million gallons of hazardous and radioactive waste stored in underground tanks, some of which have leaked into the soil and groundwater feeding into the Columbia River. Because of this, Hanford is now one of the most contaminated nuclear cleanup sites in the United States. The site's proximity to local communities, such as the Tri-Cities and indigenous communities, including Yakima Nation, make public understanding of the cleanup essential. However, knowledge regarding nuclear science, nuclear energy, and cleanup processes remain limited and often shaped by historical accidents, fear-based narratives, and inconsistent communication. Misinformation and secrecy during Cold War, still influence how people think about nuclear risks. At the same time, we are entering a global moment where nuclear power is being reconsidered as a major tool for decarbonization. This makes it even more important to understand how people perceive nuclear energy and cleanup, and how demographic factors such as age, education, income, ethnicity, and geographic proximity shape those perceptions. This research ultimately asks, how do demographic factors such as age, education, income, geographic proximity, and ethnicity influence individuals' knowledge and perception of nuclear energy and cleanup efforts? More specifically, I wanted to know, does education improve nuclear literacy? How does socioeconomic status influence concern or trust about nuclear cleanup? How do familiarity and fear vary between communities? And what inequities exist that may limit participation in environmental decision making? My project has three main components: a 12-week internship at the Hanford site with CPCCO. While during my internship, I worked within the Environmental Compliance Division. My work included reviewing regulatory documentation, learning field safety protocols, participation in risk assessment and mitigation reporting, updating waste information databases, and observing how technical data is transformed into information for public audiences. This experience gave me a behind-the-scenes understanding of how cleanup operations actually function and how communication challenges arise between agencies and the public. Next, I conducted a statewide survey where I measured factual nuclear literacy by offering a multiple-choice quiz, familiarity with Hanford, perception of safety, trust in federal oversight, views on nuclear energy as a future climate tool, and demographic categories such as age, income, education, and ethnicity. Lastly, I reviewed scholarly readings on risk perception, environmental justice, and nuclear communication. These sources helped contextualize and verify my survey patterns. Now we'll move on to the results, beginning with overall public perception. The survey showed that 80.9% of participants reported a positive view of Hanford, while 12% of participants reported a neutral view of Hanford, but 7.1% held negative views regarding the Hanford site. While 84.2% believed living near the Hanford site is safe, 12.5% reported ongoing concern. 77% of respondents expressed confidence in federal oversight, though 15% reported distress. And lastly, 91.8% said nuclear energy should play an important future role in our future energy sources. These findings reflect an interesting split. Though many Washington residents are optimistic about nuclear energy as a climate solution, there remains skepticism towards institutions managing nuclear waste. This trend mirrors national research showing that people can support the technology while distrusting institutions behind it. I found that demographics do, in fact, influence nuclear literacy and overall understanding of the site and its cleanup. To begin, younger adults, 18 through 24, tend to be less trusting of Hanford's safety, yet more supportive of nuclear energy for climate policy. So the view is both climate motivated and historically aware. Education was the strongest predictor of nuclear literacy. If you take a look at Figure 2, respondents with bachelor's degree or higher scored significantly better on the factual quiz provided on the survey. Furthermore, in line with risk perception research, higher education also correlated with less concern, not more, as shown in Figure 3. So, increased knowledge does seem to correlate with a reduced fear and concern, allowing individuals to form educated views. Income showed a similar pattern, where the highest quiz scores came from individuals earning $100,000, $150,000 a year, many of whom were Hanford workers, while lower incomes respondents expressed higher levels of concern about contamination and health impacts. Residents of Benton County, those living closest to Hanford, were more familiar with the site, but not necessarily more trusting, meaning proximity increases awareness, but not always acceptance. Lastly, Hispanic and Latino respondents showed lower familiarity, higher concerns, and lower levels of trust. This aligns with environmental justice literature, where communities that have historically faced environmental harm or exclusion from scientific communications continue to experience disparities in access to information and transparency. When I analyzed open-ended responses, 5 themes consistently emerged: danger and contamination, cleanup and waste management, government secrecy and distrust, history legacy and of the Manhattan Project, and community pride and employment. Many people described Hanford as both a source of economic identity and a symbol of government secrecy. These emotional frameworks significantly shape how individuals interpret scientific facts. In general, 3 dimensions became critical: knowledge regarding factual understanding, emotion with memory, narrative, and identity, and trust with confidence in institutions. Nuclear literacy is not just scientific, it is social, emotional, and historical. So, what do these findings mean? I'll highlight 3 main takeaways. The first being targeted education. Because education so strongly predicts nuclear literacy, outreach efforts must be tailored to age groups, cultural backgrounds, education levels, and multilingual needs. Schools and universities should integrate nuclear topics into environmental science programs, especially in regions near cleanup sites. Transparency gaps undermine confidence. Accessible, frequent updates from DOE and contractors through community events, digital platforms, and multilingual materials are essential. Visibility of cleanup progress builds trust and mutual understanding between local communities and the government. Hispanic Latino communities with low income groups reported the largest disparities in familiarity and trust. Equitable outreach must prioritize culturally relevant communication, opportunities for community engagement, training and educational partnerships, and accessible reporting practices. Cleanup is not only a technical process, it is a social one with direct equity implications. Overall, my research highlights that nuclear literacy is shaped by more than just scientific facts. It reflects identity, education, emotion, and historical trust. Understanding these dynamics is essential as the United States moves forward a clean energy future where nuclear power is likely to play a major role. To ensure that transition is equitable, transparent, communication and targeted educational outreach must become central to nuclear cleanup and energy policies. I'd like to thank my site supervisor at CPC Deborah Singleton, along with Michaela Martin for their support and mentorship throughout my internship. Thank you to Scott Montgomery for guiding my research and deepening my interest in nuclear topics. And thank you to the Program on the Environment and my family for their support during this project.